Okay, welcome to another edition of the Edlow Podcast. Subscribe. I just realized I got a message from one of my little, my platforms that helped me post this, that this is actually episode 200. So I'm really excited about the fact that for my 200th episode, I have one of my favorite wrestlers of all time. I have the whole effing show, Rob Van Dam. Mr. Van Dam, it is a pleasure to have you.
It's great to be here. Congratulations on your 200th episode.
Thanks, man. I'll tell you the story I told Sabu. I remember it was 1998, and it was a Sunday, and we were just kinda like me and my brother and my dad were just hanging out. We were big WWE fans, and all of a sudden, over, like, Comcast, a thing came on for ECW, and we'd heard of it, and I saw Sabu work at a local indie show here, and I saw him on the card, and so I was like, "Hey, why don't" I've heard about this, why don't we it's $20, let's just see what it's like. And you you and Sabu worked, Hayabusa, and I can't remember his name, he was the Asian guy with the tattoos, all the
O'Hare Arena in Dayton, Ohio.
yeah,
Right? You
yeah,
know
he
what's funny, as soon as you said 98, I thought of that match.
yeah, Heat Wave, and you guys blew it out of the water, and I'd never seen anything like it. And we got every ECW pay-per-view from that point on until they went under,
Mhm.
so it changed the way I looked at wrestling, and you were a big part of that. And curious, when you first signed up for ECW, did you even know that it was gonna become kind of that cultural phenomenon?
No. No. Obviously, I knew how different it was. I had the same reaction that any reasonable person has when they first are exposed to it.
Mhm.
Sabu was talking to me about bringing me in. I'm in Florida, and, I wait, 96 was I in Florida? I don't know where, yeah, I guess so, and, I was, and also, he was, I was wrestling for All Japan.
Mm.
Big that particular promotion for some reason gets left out of my resume a lot when I read that other people doing my career, but I wrestled for All Japan from '93 to '99 when, Mr. Baba died. I did one more tour with Mrs. Baba, and then, of course, I wrestled many times since then for other companies in Japan, FMW, New Japan, IWGP, TNA, WWE. Japan was a big part. Anyway, I was making good money in Japan, so I didn't really care what in between my tours what I was doing as far as, like, I wasn't hungry or looking for work, and Sabu kept saying, "Did Paul call you yet? He was supposed to call you. He didn't call you, that mother." And he kept doing that every week. I'd blow it off, be like, "Yeah, whatever." And then finally, it looked like it was gonna happen, so I checked the product out, and just like everybody, when I saw it on TV, just the promo that they, with the music, the energy, and of course the action that they were doing in the ring, all the fans jumping in the ring or throwing their chairs in the ring, like, it had that car crash appeal,
Mm.
and it was actually, a bit intimidating, for me to think of going up there. I actually had to think of a list of, hardcore moves that I could do before my first match, I was thinking like
Right.
I was like, I wonder if I could throw a chair up and do a spin kick and kick that into someone's face. I would just, like, write it down with a
Mhm.
bunch of I knew that it was totally different, but I didn't have the perspective to realize that it was on the grow. I just thought I'm going somewhere where everyone's crazy, and it is what it is. I wasn't thinking about what it's gonna be.
Mm. Now, before you got to ECW, were you not doing a lot of that hardcore stuff? Were you more like a pure wrestler? Because I mean, you can go with anybody.
Y you know, I would say that's a great question. I'm trying to think of the right way to answer that because, like, um, Sabu and I had already been wrestling each other for, 6 years by the time I got to ECW, and we were going through tables, and we were fighting, outside the ring, and we were taking bumps, down to the floor and stuff. So I would say I was hardcore, but hardcore kind of meant something different. I learned to really add an extreme level to that, but like the first match that Sabu and I had at the ECW arena, was it Hostile City Showdown? Maybe. Um, After the match, I was brand new in ECW. I went back through the curtain before Sabu, and all the boys were clapping. And I honestly, I know this sounds, I don't know if you can believe this or not, but I didn't know what it was for. I really didn't know that was for me and Sabu because I'd never seen that. I was taught, you're either a fan or you're a wrestler, and if so we didn't put each other over the way that they do now. And it was like I walked through everybody and I went to the back, and 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 then when Sabu came back there and he's like, hey, good job, whatever. I told him what happened. I said everyone was clapping. I don't know if I missed something. He goes, oh. He goes, "No, that was for us." He goes, "Me and you wrestle like that all the time, but, for them, that was, like, one of the best matches they've ever had here." So, that I was like, "Really?" And he's like, "Yeah." And I was like, "Okay." Didn't even cross my mind, like, I was confused by it. So, I would say, we already had that style to an extent, but I really learned to crank it up a notch, because that particular crowd was so opinionated, so entitled to be given, the best action. And so I was partway there, and I was definitely already different. And then the moves I was doing, and the my approach, I guess, I was doing well. People must have liked it, but I really had to learn to master that ECW hardcore environment from the inside.
Yeah, you know, it interesting about that, I know at that time frame when ECW came along, there was still kind of this, old school mentality of like, well, you don't wanna do too much before the main event and, you're killing the heat and stuff. Were you meeting that when you were doing that before ECW and you're doing that with Sabu? Did you meet a little bit of resistance in your style at other promotions?
Um, in other promotions?
Yeah, like when you went to other places and you had maybe some old timers on the top of the card, and then you guys are going out there and taking bumps on the floor and going through tables. Were they like, "Hey, man, you're killing all our heat," or what were you
Sure,
saying?
sure, absolutely. You want a quick story?
Yeah, absolutely. Love stories.
I think this was my 4th match. This was in 1990, and it was in, Burlington, Vermont, and, Sabu and I wrestle on the card. We go out there, we do every move in the book. Um, Later on in the main event, Sheik is wrestling Abdullah the Butcher.
Mm,
Abby's always been around my whole career. He was at my very first show. He was at a lot of them.
yeah.
Still around. Um, they were gonna have a big fight through the crowd, and all of the dressing room was to empty out and do this huge pull apart,
Mhm.
during this thing. And Sabu and I got together and we said, "Man, everyone that goes over there to pull them apart is gonna get cut." And believe it or not, Sabu didn't even wanna get cut at this point. It's kinda hard to believe telling the story, but we were both like me and Sabu, we made our own plan, and he was my mentor, Sabu. He'd been in the business 6 years before, I got in, and he trained me, so, he's all he goes to him. I'm super green, but,
Mhm.
um, he said, "Yeah, let's run out there, but we'll stay away from we'll just get together and do, like, our own thing and let everybody else, get all sliced up," and so, we went during the pull apart, boom, dressing room's emptying out, everyone's running out there. Um, we went out there, and then we got in the ring. Sheik and Abdullah are on the floor brawling, fighting. It's this huge thing, and we didn't know enough to not go up in the spotlight and tr and actually do our own thing, and we didn't even think about how we're taking all the eyes from everybody. We went up there and we started, like, doing, wrestling again, doing spots. I mean, you got doing flips and all kinds of stuff, having our own match, and we came back to the dressing room, and then, like, one by one, we saw all of the wrestlers, the young guys coming back, sliced up, surprised. They had no idea. They were like, "Oh my god, I didn't even know he got me," and everyone's looking like, "Oh my god, that's my blood? I thought it was someone else's," and we were laughing because we knew that was gonna happen, and they were like, "I didn't even feel it," like, they were just they were so quick, and, oh my and we were laughing and stuff, and then Abby comes back. He was not too happy. We we stopped laughing because he tore into us. He was
Mm,
so pissed that and that's where I learned the term, we were going into business for ourselves.
mm,
Didn't know what
yeah.
that until that night, and of course, looking back at it, that was a very, non-professional thing for us to do, but he was so pissed, he was screaming at us, and we're looking at Sheik like, "You gonna let him yell at us like that?" You know, like, in front of us?
And he's like, "Yes, I am. Yes, I am."
Yeah, exactly, you get it.
Yeah. Yeah, man, that's funny. You said that was, like, your 4th match or something like that?
Yeah, yep,
Oh, yeah. So you were super green, and you didn't know any
super
different.
great, yeah.
Yeah. Man, dude, when you also I've noticed that some of the guys that came over from ECW when they finally got the shot at the WWE kinda pulling back, and learning the WWE style. Was that hard for you when you got up there?
Yes.
Uh,
Yes, it was. We all had to make a lot of, adjustments. I've been told a lot. I think the general perception is that I did better than the other guys and was the standout, that continued forward, but, while I was going through it, um, some of the stuff you wouldn't even think about if you're not a wrestler, because a lot of fans would say, "Man, I like the ECW RVD, better than, WWE RVD. Seems like watered down or whatever." A lot of it isn't just them saying, "Don't do this, don't do this, don't do this." It just doesn't fit in anymore in the style, and mostly the biggest difference for me was the time restraints. In ECW, I had all the freedom in the world to do whatever I wanted, whatever I thought was appropriate, from when I walked out there to the ring until I came back, and, I mean, sometimes Paul and Sabu, like first time I wrestled Jerry Lynn, they said, you should probably go like 7, 8 minutes at the most, don't even give him that much. I went like 20, 25 minutes because I thought like, man, we were really gelling out there and I really felt like we had something and I was enjoying the match. Now, you go from having I'm doing promos, "Come to Buffalo, on the August
right,
20th, and you're gonna see why I'm the whole effing show." I really could back that up.
right.
I felt like I was being completely honest. I'm gonna do my part to make sure at the end of the night, everyone goes home happy, and it sounds egotistical out of coming out of my own mouth, but that was my mindset. I felt like when I go out there and everyone is screaming at me, it doesn't matter what happened on the whole rest of the card. I'm doing my part to make sure that they all feel like they got their money's worth, and that having that power and that freedom was part of what gave me the confidence to be the whole effing show and to really tap into everything that I needed to from the character to really believing in myself. Now go from there to WWE, and now it's like, okay, Josh, you got RVD tonight. You guys got 4 minutes, and there's a 2 minute commercial break.
Mm, yeah.
How you gonna how you gonna be the whole effing show? How are you gonna get all that in? How are you gonna make sure that everyone up there is screaming when in fact they've already been programmed to wait, to really scream for Steve Austin when he says, "What? What?"
Mm, right.
Total different those kind of things you wouldn't think about, but,
Yeah.
it was the whole landscape is different, so you gotta make different choices.
Yeah, and it's interesting because on the indie scene, it's like that. I remember, we'll go to a show and they'll give you time. They'll say, "Yeah, well, 8 to 10 minutes." But then if you go 15, they're like, "Whatever, who cares?" It's really you have kind of a a a blank canvas to paint with.
Right.
Whereas, I told you off air, I trained with Johnny Jeter, who was trained at OVW, who his whole career was in the WWE, and so he ran a show and he ran it like WWE, and it was like, keep it simple, keep it tight. And a lot of the indie guys struggled with that, trying to figure out they were so focused on what, typically the indie style is that they, kinda struggled doing that. And
Yeah,
so
well, to understand it on a on one more level, in ECW, you could do whatever you wanted. Paul could always and was likely going to edit it anyway. Now on WWE, it's live TV. Everyone's watching. They're paying millions of dollars for every few seconds that you're in the ring. So,
yeah, yeah. Did you feel an immense pressure when you were there to kinda excel, or was even WWE even, like was that even a goal of yours?
well, I'm sure it was when I wanted, when I first wanted to. Wait, is there a fire in here? No. um, when I wanted to be a wrestler, I grew up on WWE as a kid, so of course that was all I knew about, and I dreamed of being in the WWE. After my time in ECW, I felt like I was at home. I felt like that's the best showcasing environment for RVD. Um, this is the most fun out of all the organizations, and I really didn't want to leave ECW when all of the possible futures were being discussed for ECW, and Paul every week was telling us, that he was trying to get us a national TV deal. I got a meeting with Barry Diller. We might be on Fox, if not USA. And he would like,
Mhm.
we really wanted that to happen. I really wanted that to happen. I didn't want to have to go somewhere else to have my career. But in the end, if I wanted to continue being a TV wrestler in the United States, there was only one choice.
Yeah. Now, if you, uh, going one of the things that I remember from you, I remember ECW One Night Stand happening, and you had a broken leg, and you went out there and cut an incredibly passionate promo about how this was worse than missing WrestleMania. Um, and it's interesting as someone who watched that, I felt that for you. Like, you know what I mean? And then you got Spirit Out of Your Shoes by Rhino and Sabu
Mhm.
and all that, and it was such an amazing moment. But then the next year when they did it again, you got to wrestle John Cena. Would you say that, like, as far as moments in your career, was that one of the top ones when you got to work Cena at essentially an ECW crowd?
For sure. There's so many reasons, but just to back up what I heard you just say, for anybody that was in WWE that might have been offended by me saying missing that one night stand was worse than missing WrestleMania. The match we're talking about, when I did wrestle John Cena at ECW One Night Stand, I made way, way, way more money than I ever made at any of the WrestleManias. So,
Fair enough. Were there
yeah,
people who were offended by you saying that?
it was meant to offend some, some of the
Okay.
guys in the office. So I don't know how they took it exactly, but I really wanted to try to explain how important ECW was, how important that night was, and how much I refuted all of their hate against ECW. But the match with Cena was my crowning moment out of my whole career because um, that night, the buildup for that match was my whole career up till that point. I was fighting for everything that I stood for and believed in, and he really represented everything else, everything about wrestling that those fans hated. And so because of that, and because RVD got the win, that makes that by far the crowning moment. What I didn't know that night was that that was the peak of my career. Like when
Mhm.
you're there, you just think it's gonna go on and on and on. I looking back at it, after that it was just boom, like, what happened after that? I got busted, with cannabis,
Mhm.
speeding in Ohio. The same thing, by the way, the same 18 grams in the same town of Hanging Rock, Ohio right now, would not even be a penalty,
Right,
I
right.
was ahead of my time like I always am. Uh, but when that happened, I just thought, "Okay, 30-day suspension, a little setback, whatever. I'm in my peak, we're going great." but then it never came back around, you know, like, but when I came back from suspension, they had gotten rid of Extreme Rules in ECW, which is
Mm.
the
It's the whole
stupidest thing,
point. It's the whole point.
unless you're trying to destroy it, which I am almost sure at least some of the people in the office were, wanting to snuff it out, and so now ECW means 1 Extreme Rules match per night. They're polluting the talent pool with Raw and SmackDown wrestlers for no reason, no reason, not there to settle a score the extreme way. They're just on the card to try to help because they think ECW needs it, so you see, it was disheartening, and I knew I was gonna not resign. I was just counting the days till my contract was up.
Yeah, and, it's so funny now looking back, hindsight being 2020, you get busted back then, and it seemed like, they made it such a big deal, and like you said, now something like that happens, everyone's just like, "Yeah, he's the cannabis guy." Like, now you can go to a dispensary, at least here in California, and get stuff, and it's no big deal, and people doing it recreationally all the time, so it's just kinda like, even as me as an LDS, Mormon guy who doesn't partake, it would be like, "Yeah, you got caught with some pot, whatever." Like, it's kinda interesting how life works, but do you think, a lot of what I talk about here on the podcast is sometimes you don't really like, when you're in the middle of something, you kinda can't really see the end. Do you think in the end that was, like, a better thing for you, or do you think you wish it would've gone differently?
Well, I try not to entertain too many, time wasting, energy wasting hypotheticals that we can do nothing about. What I can say, I mean, it would have been cool if I would have held the championship longer, but a lot of fans like to say, dude, you'd still be champ today if it wasn't for that.
Mm.
I doubt that 10 years later, but
Right.
or no, 20 years later,
I
excuse me.
know.
But
Flies, right?
yeah, but um, what was I gonna say about the shoot?
The what ifs. We were talking about what ifs and hypotheticals.
Yeah, so, would have been cool. To that, I gotta say, who knows how long I would have had the belt anyway, who
Mhm.
knows?
Right.
And they say, "Well, did they plan on?" I don't listen to plans. I don't believe in plans. Plans change so much. They could have told me 100 things, and I wouldn't have got one to stop in my head. I just let it go in one ear and out the other till it
Mhm.
actually happens. And that's my approach to life too,
Mhm.
skeptically optimistic. I'll believe it when I see it.
Mhm.
But you know what? I gotta say the way that it did turn out, I'm definitely okay with and always have been. At the end of the 30-day suspension, I asked for more time off. I said, "This is great." You know?
Right. Right.
Paul, I was talking to Paul Heyman, and he was like, "Don't say that, Vince will not like that," and I was like, "Fuck, this is I got time to be home because I was really burnt out anyway."
Yeah.
And you mentioned going to the dispensaries in California, this week, you should be able to go and pick up some, RVD 420, as a matter of fact. It's a new project I have that, just this week, is hopefully going into stores. I have both Damn Good CBD, that's the website for that, and then I also have RVD 420, which that's the website for that. And with both the CBD and the THC side, and if you ask me that question again, 6 months, 12 months down the road and plans work out the way they are, then I'm gonna tell you absolutely things worked out for the better because we're talking about doing this pretty big, so
Yeah. Well, if you're and also not only
it's rewarding for everybody.
well, let me ask you as a guy, you've been, like you said, you were ahead of your time in, advocating for the legalization and recreational use of marijuana. And I'm LDS, and I can tell you that we have a code of health that traditionally has not included marijuana use. However, it has kind of softened, particularly when it comes to medical use, particularly of CBD and things like that, that don't necessarily have the THC in it. So I would say, as someone who's and I also have family members who, because of mental health issues and whatnot, use it as a kind of a self-medicating, drug to help them regulate their own, mental health. So perhaps if you were talking to somebody who had never used and don't understand what the appeal is and whatnot, can you kinda explain to somebody why you've been so heavily, advocating for this for so long?
I'll try. So first off, if it's not for you, it's not for you, and that's awesome. There's nothing to say about that. It's not for everybody. I hate it when people try to push their beliefs and issues, like, come on, just try it. Come on. That's how that is how I first got introduced to it was peer pressure from other wrestlers, you know. Come on, you pussy. Everyone else hit it. It's not gonna kill you. Do it. And I was
Right.
just turned 21. I was on my 21st birthday, actually.
Mm,
And I was against it because of everything that I was taught in school about it. Then through studying, I learned that was all bullshit.
mm,
And so were a lot of other subjects that I was taught in school. But when it comes to cannabis, I learned not only were all the claims bullshit, but also there was a whole disinformation campaign intentionally put out there to fool everybody. And that is the history of cannabis since they outlawed it. Like way back, if you go back to 1937, you'll see depending on what you read, well, they prohibited it because they wanted to drive Mexicans and blacks out of the area, and there were racist reasons, and then over here, it's like William Randolph Hearst made more money from in the paper business from chopping down 20-year-old trees than he would from 1 year old because cannabis, it's an annual crop. You can even do it in 90 days with indoor lights, but
mm,
most of when it comes to materials, it seemed like hemp or the plant itself, however you want to word it, is superior to a lot of its competition, and that is why they prohibited it. And once I found that out, I thought, wait a minute, people got to know this. People got to know that the real reason it's out that it's prohibited because all the money that alcohol kicks in, all the money that pharmaceuticals kick into prohibiting it, when it
yeah,
can replace 80% of all of that. And anyway, then I learned that people that I look up to love it. Some of these wrestlers that are great athletes in great condition, people that I wanna be like, they like marijuana, so that was enough to break down, the wall against it. Now to say why I'm so, passionate about advocating, um, here's a quick little story that I think will help you understand. My evil ex had cancer, and we were at the City of Hope in California, and we're at a dietary meeting where there's a dietitian, and we got all these patients, and she's giving a speech and giving advice or whatever, and it comes to questions, and this old lady raises her hand and she asks her in front of everybody, "What can I do to keep weight on more, maybe to stimulate my appetite because I'm wasting away, I'm weak, I'm tired. When I go to eat, I'm just nauseous. I don't even have an appetite." And I feel like if there's something out there, and the lady, I'm like, okay, here it comes. But the lady says, you know what? There's little tricks you can learn. You can add like powdered milk onto your food and you get like little extra calories that way and just really keep trying. And I got kind of mad. I'm like, this is California. California was the first state to initiate medical marijuana way back in 96. There's dispensaries like 2 blocks from here, and you're not gonna tell her this could help her? And so I
mhm,
raised my hand and I said, "What about cannabis?" And she goes, exactly. She said, "Okay, I'm not allowed to bring it up, but since you brought it up," and then she turns to the lady and she says, a lot of patients really get benefits from smoking cannabis. It can stimulate your appetite, it can help you with comfort, it can help you sleeping. all this stuff. And it's her policy to hold back on that and let these fucking people suffer because that's what her superiors tell her to do. That's her job. It's not a moral issue. It's that my passion sits.
Mhm.
It can help so many people, and just because the one percenters that really do run everything and really have all the money, the world leaders,
Mhm.
because they would lose a little bit of profit, fuck everybody else.
Yeah, it's interesting when you look at the lobbying. So I have a degree in government from Sac State, and I'm an attorney, and so I've learned a lot about lobbying and campaign finance and whatnot. And when you look at the numbers of the people who are against and are pushing against the legalization of marijuana in states, it's almost exclusively the alcohol lobby because they've seen in studies that where it's legal, alcohol use plummets because people start using marijuana because there's not the hangover and there's not as much there's not necessarily as much evidence that it affects your driving and things like that. So because of that, the alcohol lobby is the one that's going in there and saying, "No, we can't legalize this." And when you see that paints a different picture than what you're kinda sold.
Yeah, and by the way, speaking of painting a different picture, when I do my podcast, I usually smoke every week. Not always, because sometimes Katie and the babies will be with us.
Mhm,
Uh, but usually I smoke, and I told all of the people, one reason is because I like to smoke, and now would be a good time since I'm sitting here, for the next 2 hours with all you people. But also I want to represent the responsible smokers. Now, people, the haters out there like to think like, "Oh my god, he couldn't even tell you his name. He was like so blitzed." And when they're talking about me, that is never, never, ever true. You can
mhm,
watch me every single week. Sometimes I smoke 2 doobies, sometimes even 3, if
mm,
but I smoke and it doesn't change me talking to you. It doesn't my I love being tested on my recall, like, especially after I smoked a couple when somebody mentions oh yeah, was William Randolph Hearst on the San Francisco press. I'm sometimes, I press myself and I'm like, I hope people, but not about being high, but just I happen to have like a great memory. My point is, when I smoke, it doesn't change me the way that, people want to assume that it does. Maybe it does the kid that that's irresponsible anyway, or maybe it does you. Everybody is affected by everything different. Everyone reacts different to everything, and that's like the number one rule in our ideology. We all have our own values, and we all react differently to everything. So people that don't have that perspective, say things that don't make sense. But anyway, um, I it's important to me that, when people hit me in the message board and they're like, "Dude, I just watched you smoke a joint and a half, and you don't and you're still recalling all these stories," or whatever. It mellows me out a little bit. I'm not gonna come up with a reason to say, "This is why everyone should smoke. This is why I love it," because, you know, I I just enjoy it. If I don't have it, I'm fine too. And that
mhm,
happens all the time, especially long travel days. I go all the time, and I'll be like, "Wow, I haven't smoked for a whole day or a day and a half," or whatever. But and I have also, and do sometimes intentionally. So I'm going to take these many days off. Doesn't matter to me. It's just choice.
yeah,
And when you talk about addiction, that's a whole nother subject.
mhm,
But I know from firsthand experience, not everyone is addicted.
mhm,
I'm not addicted to anything. I've always been able to just stop whatever, whenever. And people that are addicted, why should I and people like me be held back because of people like that? I feel like, and I don't, you know, some people might not like hearing this, but it's just a thought. I feel like addiction is more of a weakness that belongs to an individual rather than blaming it on the drug. I mean, you don't want to get rid of cars because they hit people. You don't
right,
want to get rid of guns because people get shot, but you want to blame the drugs because some people don't have, any self-control.
Yeah, a couple things that came to mind. First of all, as far as the memory goes, I think I've done between 30 and 50 wrestling podcasts. I think you are the first one when I'm talking about a match could tell me the date and the place that that match took place. Most of the time I'm talking, they go, "I don't even remember that match," and
That
you
happens
do.
too sometimes, you know?
Yeah, yeah, but I thought that was really impressive. And then the other thing is when it comes to addiction, one thing that I've noticed, I have a pretty heavy addiction gene that runs through my family, which is why I really don't partake in anything. And uh, One of the things that I've noticed is a lot of time addiction is just an unhealthy coping mechanism, dealing with stress or dealing with things that they emotionally can't deal with. And so if you're able to deal with your emotions, perhaps, in a positive way, which it sounds like you are. I mean, the fact that you're saying things like, yeah, I don't dwell on things I can't control. That's a very emotionally mature thing to say. A lot of people don't do that. And so maybe that's part of the reason why you can handle it, whereas some other people can't.
Well, I think that's part of it. But also, like when it comes to depression, it's easy to say you don't have anything to be depressed about, or to say, like, hey, you need to get outside more or find more inspirational things. All of that's true and great, but I also do believe that when it comes to the science of it, brain chemistry is a huge part of it, and it's
Sure.
like, and we all, like I said, we're all different.
Mhm.
And if you look at how much dopamine my brain releases versus how much yours does or whatever, there's going to be some variation. And so for people that are depressed or have some mental health issues and stuff, I'm a firm believer in the meds. A lot
Yeah.
of a lot of cannabis advocates, are like, no, fuck all the drugs. Their pills are bad. There's Our lives have been extended by decades because of modern medicine.
Sure.
Uh, they need to be respected and treated as such, as powerful as they are. But a lot of times that is the answer, and a lot of people are so against meds. I know I've had so many conversations with people that are depressed, and it's just not again. It's against their belief to go on meds. I was there
Mhm.
myself.
Mhm.
I went into a deep depression in 2016, going through the divorce, the wife left. Now I got this big, empty, cold house by myself. And then my dog died, my dad died. It was just everything. And picking up that phone and actually calling to talk to a doctor, one of the hardest things I ever had to do. I kept
Yeah.
I kept like I'd pick it up and I'd hang up. And then
Mm.
the next day I'd get a little further, I'd pick it up and start dialing and hang up. And then
Yeah.
finally, one time I got through and I was telling the doc I didn't even have a voice, I was just all
Mhm.
about myself, like, didn't want anyone to see me like that, and I'm trying to talk, and I'm like, "Oh my god, that's my voice." I'm just like, "Ugh." I was in a really bad place, and then the first doctor said, "No, I can't fit you in." I was like, "No, you fucking have to." So,
Right.
I mean, how much further do you go before you start thinking offing yourself, And so a lot of people, that are in a preventative stage, prior to offing themselves, listen to what I'm saying. Meds could be the answer. They might not be, but it
Mm.
could be. It could be that your brain chemistry is off from a natural reason. That it could be. Unfortunately, sometimes the answers aren't easy, and you gotta try a few things before you really know what's right.
Yeah. Going into that, you mentioned going through your divorce and then your dad dying and all those things and really being in a deep depression. And I've followed you and followed things that you've said on other interviews and whatnot. And it sounds like now, 10 years later, you're really in it sounds like you feel like you're in the best place possible, and I've experienced that in my life, right? Like, setbacks and things like that, I've gone through similar situations, and then you look back and you go, "Man, like, I'm in such a better place, and I wouldn't have been there if that bad thing didn't happen." So, if someone in here is going through is in that spot, like, what message would you share to somebody who's maybe going through a divorce or going through some hard time and can't really see the end yet?
Well, so you have to understand, I didn't want the divorce. I fought it all the way till the end. It was not my choice because I didn't wanna be one of those divorced guys, and I looked at that as failure.
Mm,
Really, that's the only reason. I mean, w I now, as you said, having the time gone by to where we have a bigger picture, I'm so thankful. I'm so glad that she left. I was miserable. When I look at the whole thing, the happiest moments in my 15-year relationship, uh, don't even weigh up against some of the mediocre moments that happen right now.
mm,
I was with the wrong person.
mm,
It's not that easy to get out. A lot of people listening might be with the wrong person, or you might just think, "Well, I don't deserve better," and maybe you don't, I don't know. For me, I mean, it's all priorities. For me, like, my marriage, I was like, "I'm gonna give when I get married, that's gonna be my number one priority. I'm not gonna fuck it up. I'm gonna be faithful to the end. I'm gonna treat that person I think enough about myself and respect myself enough to where I think if someone has the title of being Mrs. RVD, that person should be treated like a queen." And that's how I felt. And even though the Evil X totally didn't deserve it, I went through that whole fucking thing and in the end got to respect myself so
mm.
much that when I met the right person, I didn't have any doubts. Like, I knew when I met Katie, I was like, "I'm totally gonna be able to be faithful to her and treat her good," Like, I got
Mhm.
tested, and, a lot of guys don't know that about themselves. I remember when I was much younger and, one of my friends was getting married, and I'm like, "How do you know that's the last girl you're ever gonna wanna be with, though? How can you know?" And I was so confused about all of it. Man, being with the right person is everything. And Katie and I have been together 10 years now.
Mhm.
And since we met, she's just always treated me like she respects me. She respects my perspective, what I've done in life, the choices that I make. We love each other so much. We do is lift each other up. We don't treat each other um like, "Hey, dumbass," how many times I gotta tell you? Like, there's none of that. There's no room for that. I
Mm.
don't ever want her to think that that's what I think about her. So all
Right.
we do is compliment each other, lift each other up, and now that we got 2 babies, that they're gonna be raised in, like, the best environment of love because there's no room for negative energy. There's no drama in our house that we can avoid. I mean, every once in a while, it knocks on the door and you gotta deal.
Right, right. You're not perfect, so of course there's stuff like that. I mean, that always happens, but, here's a question that I've had. I was recently talking to somebody about this. Do you think that you would be as grateful for Katie if you hadn't gone through that first marriage and divorce?
No way.
Yeah. Like, don't you
No.
think, like, some of the things you really appreciate about her, you probably would have taken for granted if it was the first go, right?
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. Different place in life, and obviously like a lot of years apart too. Like when I met the Evil X, I was like so much younger. And when I met Katie, I didn't even last thing I wanted was to be in a relationship.
Mhm.
I just thought that's what life wanted me to do was to be single for a while since I've been, strapped down to the wrong person for so long. So I was actually enjoying some of being single and getting out there and then Katie was just like so awesome and then all we did was grow like whenever we had a problem we bring it up and it's like hey I don't like it when you call me the or when you say this word or whatever it is it's like done like boom like we both want to have the best life and we get along so damn good you can't fake that you can't have that chemistry with just everybody out there. So I'm so grateful that she came into my life and insisted that she was my girlfriend. Yeah, especially just told me, yeah,
Yeah.
all those other girls, they're done.
Yeah.
Uh, but I'm
How did
so
you
thankful.
how'd you
Yeah.
meet her?
Yeah, we at WrestleCon in Dallas in 2016, we were just a few tables apart. You know, she's a wrestler as well.
Uh-huh,
Luke Hawks from New Orleans,
uh-huh.
Wildcats Wrestling had her at the table, and she had actually been I don't want to say like I'll say stalking for lack of a better word. But she had already been trying to get Luke to bring me in, and she'd already been talking about me and saw me on TV and had something for me, you know what I mean?
Mhm,
So I
mhm.
didn't know that. I didn't know that, and when Luke brought her over and he said, "Rob, this is I want to introduce you to somebody. This is Katie." I looked at her and I said, "Hi, Katie," and I gave her like a really big hug, and I was trying to be silly and not let go, and maybe a little creepy too. Now that I think about it, like now that we've been through the Me Too movement and
Yeah,
went side of it,
yeah,
but but I was gonna wait until she reacted to let go, till something. I was
yeah,
trying to I was trying to make it an awkwardly long hug, but she wasn't letting go.
yeah.
She wasn't letting go. She was
And then
hugging. Yeah.
now you're like, "No, now I'm awkward. Now this is awkward for me."
Yeah.
Yeah. That's awesome, man. That's awesome. It's always cool to hear when you got somebody who has gone through it and come out the other side and is happy.
Yeah.
Like, that gives so much hope to so many people I know. 'Cause I have I mentioned off air, here in the LDS, the Mormon space, you know, uh, divorce is not as common. And so when it does happen, there's and it's so family oriented. I got a lot of friends who are in that space now, and they kinda struggle with that, and it's always cool to hear that somebody who went through it and can feel it and empathize with what they're feeling, eventually the sun rises again, and that's really awesome to hear that you're doing that, and so, what perhaps you can tell me, what do you think is the key that makes this marriage different? Like, is there something you're doing together differently that you weren't getting with your ex?
It's our chemistry for sure.
Mm,
The things that I said, Katie respects me. The evil ex never did.
mm,
There was no respect. Katie trusts me. The evil ex never did. Like
mm.
when I think back, like the whole time, she never trusted me. She wanted me to know, like, okay, I know what's going on, just in case something's going on. It was like the whole. It was. It's we were way different people,
Mhm,
and we didn't belong together.
mhm,
And then me and Katie are very similar. I didn't think that I would ever want to date somebody in the entertainment business, just because I know, a lot of what goes on the road and stuff, and didn't think I wanted anything to do with that. But then, as Katie and I were growing together, I realized, man, it's so perfect that we both have the same agendas, the same goals. Like she understands, like if I was with the evil ex and we were at a restaurant and somebody came up and talked to me like, "Hey, Rob Van Dam, can I get a picture?" She would get jealous and she'd get pissed and then she would give me shit for it. And then we'd fight about it. And then, Katie's gonna understand that Katie loves the fans. Katie loves everyone. She's the sweetest person I've ever met. She's my favorite person that I ever met, and that makes a huge difference.
yeah.
Uh, I mean, Katie will be like, "Hey, you want me to take the picture?" She'll grab the camera, and usually they'll be like, "Can we get you too?" At the conventions, Katie goes with me, and we'll be sitting there at the table, and man, almost I've never seen a girl get complimented by other girls so much. Like I didn't
Yeah,
even know it was a thing. I thought all catty and hated each other.
right.
And, like,
Y
everyone that goes by, like, they'll say to Katie, "Oh my god, you're so pretty," and she always says, "Thanks, you are too." Like, she always gives it, like, right back. She's, like, so
that's
sweet.
that's
So
awesome.
the individuals that are in this, make up the biggest difference, but let me tell you this, anyone listening, you could do the exact same job, exact same choices, exact same thing you always do in a regular 24-hour day. And if you have a life partner that tells you that you're a loser, that you're falling short, that you're not living up to her expectations, she's unhappy, you're gonna feel a certain way. Now you could have the exact same day and have a different partner that says, "Fuck yeah, man, you're crushing it," and, "Oh, that's a good idea," "That's oh, cool, man, you're so smart," and all of a sudden, it changes everything about your life without you changing a damn thing.
Yeah, and it's always nice when you're not like, you feel like you're not competing. You know what I mean? You're not competing with your partner, like, that's
Or afraid
it
or walking on eggshells, afraid to say the wrong thing.
yeah, yeah. I mean, it's so different when you're like, "I actually like talking to this person." You know, I like spending time with this person. Yeah, so
That's everybody. I wish that for everybody, and I can't tell people, "Hey, if you're recognizing some of these red flags in your relationship, I can't say get the hell out of there." You know what I mean?
yeah,
And who am I to even say, and you gotta do what you gotta do, and maybe there's kids involved and this and that. But either way, man, I think everybody really deserves happiness. And it really does have a lot to do with just being with the right person. I think there is somebody out there for you. If you're married to your high school sweetheart and you live in a town of 300 people, how can you possibly feel like you've experienced enough of the world and met enough people to know that's the one?
yeah, that's a good point. You mentioned you got the babies now. How was fatherhood, with Katie? How has that changed you?
Wow. It's an awesome experience. I don't know if it's changed me very much. It's definitely changed my opinion on kids, though. At 54 years old, I had never wanted kids, ever.
Right.
Didn't have
Mhm.
any paternal drive. But she did, and she wanted them so bad, and I wanted to fulfill her so bad. Ooh, did that sound,
Sounded a little I think we got it, but yeah, it sounded a little weird.
I did not want her to live her life being unfulfilled and feeling like she missed out on anything, and, that was a big drive, and just seeing how happy she was around kids, her nephews, her nieces. She's the best aunt, she's the best sister, she's the best daughter, she's a great so she really taught me a lot about family values, my family, we all love each other, but, I mean, I probably talk to my brother once every couple years. My mom is, like, 86, and I've talked to her, like, every no, 85, 86. She's 86, and anyway, I should call her more. But, but Katie's, like, every single day, she's, like, FaceTimes with her mom, with her sisters, with everybody. She's, like, so family oriented, which is really a good thing, when you're, thinking about being a parent, but, eventually, I was just like, she really wants kids way more than I don't want kids.
Mhm.
And since we're staying together, all through the whole run, no question about that, you know, um, let's see about, having some kids. How about, and, so anyway, I never hung around kids. I didn't know any babies. I
Mhm.
didn't know that much about them or whatever. So I'm experiencing all of this like live as it's happening. And I didn't know that you could really interact with babies that young that much. They're just 6 months now. But
Yeah.
even like 3 months ago, like just the way you look at each other and you can actually like communicate and they have personalities and I don't know. I guess I just kind of thought that since I don't remember anything before I was like 3 or 4 years old, so I just kind of thought you were like a toy until then.
Yeah, right. You know what, though? The thing that's cool, my so I got 4 kids, they're 19, 17, 15, and 13, right? And, I can just tell you, man, it gets better. It gets so cool. Like, it's there's some moments, like, teenage daughters are a that's a different animal, man, but one of the things that I love about having kids is watching them develop passions that are so different than yours. You know what I mean? Like, you'll sit there and like, I got a daughter that's a huge theater kid. I don't know where that came from, you
Mhm.
know? I got a boy who's a basketball player. I got a boy who's a choir kid. He loves singing. He's been in international choirs, and, like, I got another daughter who's a major artist, and I have no idea like, it's just fun to watch them, and I always tell them, I'm like, I don't care what you obviously, none of them got the passion for wrestling, right? And, I mean, they watch it and they love it and all that stuff. My son is on a mission to Peru, and I let him know you were coming on, and he was really jealous. He was like, "Dang
Yeah.
it, I wish I could be on that." But,
Well,
uh what's that?
tell him hello. I look forward to meeting him someday.
Yeah, definitely, and he but the cool thing with him was he very much like it's been cool to watch them develop a passion that is as strong as my passions, but different, and watching them pursue them, you know? And so you got a cool life coming ahead of you when you see some of these things.
Well, yeah, that's one reason that I really wanted girls instead of boys is they're gonna be so different. I don't want another boy. In fact, there's usually a rule at the Van Dam household, there always has been, that I'm the only guy here. And I a lot of times, some you may have seen some of the photo shoots on Instagram or whatever, but Katie would have like a bunch of girls over and they're all getting content. And man, they want to bring their boyfriends over, and we're always like, dude, no. Especially if it one girl, she's like, I feel sorry for Rob. I want to bring my boy. He doesn't have anyone to hang out with. I'm like, no, I'm fine. I
Yeah.
this ain't a blind date for me. I'm home. Don't
Yeah.
leave your man. But it turned out he was jealous, and that's why he wanted to come over. But
Yeah.
um, for the girls, yeah, like, the just the female energy is something for me. I remember as a kid in school, I got my only bad grades were always with men teachers.
Mm,
Yeah,
mm,
and with female teachers, those I got the best grades and stuff, and for some reason, there's like I don't know if it's an alpha male wall that's built in there or whatever.
right.
I always joke that if I had a son, I would have to, send him down the river so he doesn't grow up and usurp me.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
uh,
My sons they are desperate to beat me in basketball, and they're desperate, and they haven't yet. They're close, but, but it's cool. Even the daughters, man, it's cool, and it's so interesting how protective you can get over them and stuff. I gotta imagine for them, it's gonna be tough having Rob Van Dam as a dad. So,
we'll
uh
see.
yeah. Well, I wanna be respectful of your time. We're about up. I appreciate you giving me the time. Last question. I have a last question I ask everybody. If, one day you're gonna pass away, and when you do, there'll be a funeral and a eulogy, what's the one thing you hope somebody says about you in your eulogy?
Mm, he was one of a kind.
Perfect. You are, man. You
I
are.
I I hope, I hope they'll say something about, my efforts having validity in life, changing some previously set standards, whether it's in wrestling or in cannabis legalization, rights, human rights, just, people. I hope I affected people in a positive way. Let's just
Yeah.
leave it
Well
there.
I'll tell you, man, one of the things that I've
And I
really
can't
loved.
believe he lived to be 350 years old.
Well,
So,
one of the things that I've always loved about you, and why I think people draw to you even when maybe WWE didn't necessarily want you to get where you were, was your authenticity. Like, everything about you, I always felt like when you were saying something or you were doing something, you meant it, and it was you behind it. Your passion came through. So, just man, I appreciate that authenticity a lot, and I hope we're gonna have to do this again because I wanna talk to you about your thoughts on the human rights thing, and also about your stretching routine in yoga, man. Like, I gotta hear about I need some of that in my life. So, hey, where can people find you if they wanna follow you and they're not necessarily wrestling fans, but wanna follow you?
I am on social media at the real RVD everywhere. My podcast is one of a kind. Not really sure what website that is, but you can look it up. I think it's let me see. It might be one of a kind.com. I think one of a kind.com forwards you to the YouTube page that my host posts
Okay.
but anyway, we do we do the podcast like once a week, and you can watch it live or watch it later on. The Real Life VD on YouTube also goes to another page that has the podcast, but we'll be doing it. I don't know when this is going to air, so
Yeah, this will be airing next week, so it'll be coming up, yeah, it'll come up, Monday, so
cool.
but,
Happy
but
Monday, everybody.
yeah, well, right on, man, I really appreciate it. We'll have you on again for sure. Rob Van Dam, you are one of a kind, and I appreciate you being my 200th episode.
Awesome. Appreciate it, Josh. Look forward to our next talk.
Alright, man, thanks.